Hello Platform Con 2024 community. My name is Andy Grabner. I'm really happy to be here. I am a CNCF Ambassador, and you can see some of the logos of the CNCF projects that I've been involved in the last couple of years. I'm also a DevRel at Dynatrace, and with this, I've been working a lot of years in observability. That's also my talk today, the Observability Guide to Building Resilient, Available, and Secure IDPs. Because what I've seen as organizations are building platforms, you want to make sure that those platforms are treated as a product, and therefore you also need to apply all of the observability best practices so that individual components are available when your developers need it, are resilient when a lot of your developers need it, and also secure because you don't want your platforms to be hacked or your developers being able to use your platforms to deploy and operate unsecure code. So a couple of best practices of things that I've seen over the years. Now, I know we are here at PlatformCon. I don't need to tell you what a platform is, but as a starting point, just one quick thing from my side. How do you build successful platforms? What I've seen is, first of all, find the pain points and needs of your users. So your developers have certain pain points and certain needs to get their job done, so find those. Then have a clear mission with measurable KPIs, right? If you're building a platform, what is actually the measure of success so that it can actually have an impact in your organization? The next thing is design for good user and developer experience. Very important. Every organization has different needs, different users of their platforms, and every user has different skills and therefore is expecting a different experience. Some may expect the UI, some may expect a CLI, some expect an API, different things. Then start with the TVP, as I call it, the thinnest viable platform. That means start with a small thing that your platform will do it well, and then scale from there. And now to kind of close the loop, and also that brings me into my main topic, make everything observable. Because whatever you build, you're building a product for your end users, and you want to make sure this gets observed and you get alerted in case things are not going well. So to show you this in a different perspective, if you have your end users on the top, you provide them so self-service for the different features that they expect. As I said, your users will want to have different user interfaces on how they interact with your platform and how they consume self-services. And then you will probably pick the best technology that actually allows you to build this type of product. Now, in most cases, this is probably going to be somehow based on maybe a container orchestration platform like Kubernetes, but it doesn't have to be. It can also work on other things because in the end, it's about you providing a product to your engineers to make them more efficient. Now, the important thing is, and this is going to be the key point of what I've seen in my talk, you want to make sure that this platform itself, whatever tools you use, is available, resilient, and secure, and that you also use observability to measure the success of your platform. You measure how many people are actually using it, because if nobody's using it, what good is a platform or a product for? For platform engineering, I know there's a lot of talks around DORA, around SLAs, SLOs. You can use observability by baking observability into your platform and automatically monitor how often your developers are actually using your platform to deploy a new feature. How are these deployments then operating? How often are they available or not available? So you can also deliver your SLIs and SLOs. Okay, so this is kind of like the quick overview. I want to now give you some practical examples of things I've seen. A classical use case, an end-to-end use case, is self-service onboarding of new applications. What you see on the top here is the regular, I would say, developer journey and all the tools that are part of a development platform, an IDP. And on the bottom, these are some of the tools that might be used by the platform engineering team to make all this work. Now, this is a common journey that we've also seen internally in our organization, where the starting point for an engineer is a Jira ticket where the product team is putting in requirements. From that, you may have Backstage. That's also a very common IDP that we see out there. Backstage with the templating feature where you can create a new component, specify what feature you want to implement, link it to the Jira ticket, say who you are, providing ownership information. That is one of the steps here. And then what comes out of it is, a Git repository, whether this is GitHub, Bitbucket, Azure, Git, whatever you're using. But it basically allows developers to just go in, start coding, because they have a working repository that includes already code, for their business code, also observability definitions, their SLIs, their SLOs, and all of this will then be taken all the way forward where developers can then directly interact with their environments using different tools. In this example, using Gitpod to actually get a development environment where they can directly interact with the Git repository commit, and behind the scenes you have the different tools on the bottom that make sure that the build artifacts that fall out of it will automatically be deployed on the target cluster. Now, from an observability perspective, here are a couple of things that you want to make sure you do. Along this journey, you have a lot of different tools that need to work perfectly in order for this developer journey to work, in order to deliver a good developer experience. For instance, I was mentioning Backstage. Backstage provides several indicators on whether Backstage is working correctly or not. Logs can tell you a lot about whether all of the templates that you're using are actually correctly configured. If Backstage is trying to scan Git repositories and they have problems. So please use observability to make sure that Backstage works as expected, that there's no misconfiguration which would lead to a bad developer experience, either by not being able to use templates or by creating new projects that have problems from the start. Next step is, a lot of people are still using Jenkins for CI. It's a great tool. You want to make sure that you're using observability in your CI to monitor how often your pipelines run, how long they run, how many they fail. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of people in this conference talk about DORA. You can use OpenTelemetry, for instance, because many and most CI/CD tools, pipeline tools, automation tools provide a capability to export OpenTelemetry traces for every pipeline run, for every job that gets executed. With this, you have the ability to actually extract all of these high-level metrics, number of jobs executed, failure rate, duration. But with traces, you also get to see when things slow down, when things fail. You can see why did this last pipeline execution fail. Maybe a depending system. Maybe Jenkins is trying to reach out to Git, but the Git API was not available. You would see this in the trace, makes it easier for you to troubleshoot. Next thing is, when you build something, you probably push it to a registry. Harbor and many others are registries out there that you want to make sure that you also monitor, because if those registries are not working as expected, the developers cannot push new content, new containers to the registry, and also your GitOps system or whatever does the deployment cannot pull them down. So that's why tools like Harbor and others are going to expose metrics and also logs to tell you as the platform owner whether these systems are running as expected or not. Going down the line, Caverno is another big important thing here. Caverno or other tools in the security space can be used and should be used to monitor what's actually going on in the platform and what is the security status, what is the status of policies being applied or not applied or adhered to. And so you want to monitor this and want to get also alerted. Remember, you want to make sure that your platform delivers security by default, and therefore you want to make sure that these tools are used, that also these tools are working all the time and not just failing for whatever reason, so that somebody can kind of swindle itself around and deploy unsecure code. Next thing is Argo, right? Argo is an amazing tool out there. It's not only Argo, there's also Flux and many others in the GitHub space. But what you want to make sure is that these tools work correctly. So these tools are exposing Prometheus metrics, they're exposing OpenTelemetry, traces or logs, and you can use them to validate how is Argo used, for which projects is it used, how often is it failing, is it failing somewhere, is it getting slower, because you want to make sure if Argo has a problem that you know about this before your developers learn about it. So apply observability best practices to all of the tools. Last but not least, in this toolchain here is Crossplane. So I'm sure many of you have heard about Crossplane. Infrastructure as code for cloud native. Crossplane and others, whether it's Terraform, Ansible, there's so many tools out there that you can use. Whatever tool you use for your infrastructure as code, make sure you observe it, you monitor it, and you learn before your engineers learn that there's a problem with it. Because if that component of your platform has a problem, your developers will also not be happy with it. So to conclude, build your platform like a product. And if you do so, make sure that you observe every component of your product, whether it's your Git system, your CI, your CD, your container registry, your security scanning tool, everything that is part of your platform. You need to make sure that you are, I always say, treating it with the same observability respect as you treat your most business critical application. And the platform is going to become your most business critical application. So monitor and observe everything. Also monitor how many people are using it. Provide with observability features back to engineers like SLOs, DORA metrics. Give it to your FinOps team to optimize things, put things into your platform to make sure that over-provisioned resources are an exception and not the rule, that you right scale things and you optimize for utilization. Now, there's many other cool things that are out there in that space. When we talk about platform engineering, the CNCF also has a white paper out there. I'm sure you've heard of it from other sessions as well. And I've also worked with some of my colleagues, and we have created a GitHub Codespace tutorial that you can scan here. And it contains some of these tools I mentioned earlier. It's a full end-to-end scenario, and every component that you see here is observed with OpenTelemetry, with Prometheus. So everything is open source, and the backend, you can obviously decide for yourself where the data lives. So this is a great, I think, starting point for an end-to-end platform that has observability and security baked in. With this, I want to say thank you so much. Hopefully this was insightful. Observability Guide to Building Resilient, Available, and Secure IDPs. I'm Andi Grabner. If you want to follow up with me, feel free to do so. Thank you. That's it. Bye-bye.